Blog Talk Radio.
Welcome to Awake to Oneness Radio. I am Caroline Chang, your host. The mission of Awake to Oneness Radio is to inspire the world to awaken to the universal truth of oneness. Spirituality and science are both telling us that we are literally connected, that we're literally all one. Science uses the term non-duality. Spirituality uses the term oneness. Non-duality and oneness mean the same thing, that we are all one. So basically what you do to another person, you literally are doing to another aspect of yourself. So once the world recognizes this and realizes this truth, there will be peace on earth. Today's topic is getting spirituality down to a science with author Prasann Thakrar. He is the author of a book entitled God equals MC Square. I discovered this book in the summer of 2012, and I contacted Prasann, and he was so gracious to send me an autographed copy of the book. And I am so honored that he did that. I love the book, and I love the title. It's truly inspirational, the way it bridges spirituality and science. Most of us are familiar with the equation, with Einstein's famous equation, E equals MC squared. Well, the E stands for energy. Science is telling us that everything is energy. Everything is energy, and everything has a vibration and a frequency. So if we take that everything is energy, and my belief is that God is everything. God is all that is. God is in everything. God is everything. So we can take the term God equals MC squared. So I fell in love with the title of the book and contacted Prasann. And the wonderful thing is, a part of what Awake to Oneness Radio wants to do is to show that not only spirituality is teaching us and telling us that we're all one, but also science is. And so today's guest is going to be the first guest that we have on that is actually going to bridge spirituality and science together. So, Prasann, how are you? Prasann?
Yes, I'm doing very well, Caroline, and thank you so much for having me on the show. It's an honor to be on the show, and I love what you're doing with the show, Awake to Oneness. I mean, I couldn't have said it any better, and I believe that is exactly true, and what you are talking about and what you're trying to portray here with your show and having the guests on, I think you're doing a fabulous job. So I appreciate that, and I appreciate being here.
Thank you. Well, thank you. I'm so honored to have you. Can you share with our audience some of your story, share your story with us, and share how you came to write the book, God equals MC Square?
Sure, absolutely. It wasn't an event specifically, but it has been a process that I've gone through in the last few years, I would say beginning from probably about 2006 onwards, that has, that has kind of caused this evolution, if you will, and a revolution as well, if you will, in my life that caused me to write this book. I came across Dr. Wayne Dyer. I don't know if a lot of your listeners might be aware of Dr. Wayne Dyer. He's my self-proclaimed spiritual guru, and he's just amazing. He's mind-blowing. And I came across his book, Being in Balance, I believe it was about 2006, May of 2006 almost, to be precise. And I read his book and I listened to his seminar that was pertaining to the book. And a lot of the things that he said, it just blew my mind. And I was like, this is the information that we all need. And then about a year later, I came across The Secret, which a lot of, it was a super phenomenal success as far as in the publishing world. 20 million copies of the book. It was really, initially it was a documentary, a film that was made into a book and into an audio book. And that both of these combined kind of changed my life, because they both, in a way, talked about this law, which is the law of attraction, and which says that you attract into your life what you think about. And it's not just something that you think about once or twice or 10 times. It's something that you believe in. It's your predominant thoughts in your mind. It's your belief about life and what it's supposed to be like. And it's your attitude in general. And basically what the concept was, that you get what you think about, which is what I love, what Dr. Wayne Dyer says. He says, you get what you think about, whether you want it or not. And whatever you focus on, whatever you think about, it's not just thoughts. I mean, people say, I can be positive and I'm thinking positive thoughts, and why aren't positive things happening in my life? I'm thinking positive thoughts. But the thoughts that kind of are internalized, and you think about them all day long, every day, and you have a certain feeling about that. Whatever you think about, and you say, life is tough, and then you feel that life is tough, and that feeling is what brings that into your life, and therefore life becomes tough. And then, or if you think that money is easy for you, and you keep thinking that, then money coming into your life is easy. Now, I'm not saying your life is going to be great otherwise, but money, whatever you think about. So if you're thinking about money and you're saying money is easy, then money comes to you easily and frequently in large amounts. I mean, there are billionaires out there. I think it was a show on CNBC a few years ago. There are more than 1,000 billionaires just in the U.S., just in the U.S. alone. So there are billionaires, 1,000 of them, and they thought the thoughts that, money is easy, and that's what happened for them. I'm not saying it's as simple as that, but in a way it really is simple as that. So that kind of changed my life. And then in The Secret, there's an author, James Arthur Ray, who was talking about what, if you were to ask a theologian what God is, and they would say always was and always will be and never can be created or destroyed, is always moving into form, to form, and out of form. And that's what a theologian would say as far as what God is, or who or what God is. And if you ask a quantum physicist, a scientist, what created energy or what created the universe, basically the same question as what God is and what created the universe, theologians would say God. And quantum physicists would say energy always was and always will be, never can be created or destroyed, always moving into form, through form, and out of form. And that just got my mind going. And I'm like, so you're talking about energy, and that's what all the spiritual traditions, religious traditions, if you will, talk about as to what created the universe. And science and spirituality, as you mentioned in the introduction of the show, Caroline, is saying the same thing, that it's energy that creates everything. And that's what led me to come up with the title of the book, God equals EML or MC squared, meaning instead of God, it's E, which is what Einstein said, E equals MC squared. And I just changed that to God to say equals MC squared. So science and spirituality are really talking about the same thing. It's just that science is now coming about to kind of proving that. Does that make sense?
Yes. Oh, everything you said. It's like you and I, we read the same books. We've I've been inspired by the same people. Actually, my first introduction to metaphysics, as I call it, was Think and Grow Rich by Napoleon Hill. And that was back in the
one of the classics.
Yes. That was back in the 70s when I was a teenager. That was the metaphysical book I read introducing me to the concept that your thoughts are things. And, again, I was a teenager, so I read the book, but it was what the thing is, when you're introduced to things of this nature, and we are programmed so differently, and this whole idea that your thoughts are things and you attract what you think about, that's so foreign to our programming. That's not what our teachers are telling us. That's not what our churches are telling us. That's not what our parents are telling us. That's not our programming. So when you first hear, especially as a teenager, you don't really grasp a hold of it. But it did resonate with me. It stayed with me. Even though I didn't understand it, it stayed with me even as a teenager, and I continued to look and look and look. But like you mentioned, The Secret and Dr. Wayne Dyer, all of these have been inspirational in my path and my spiritual growth as well. So definitely, the whole concept of law of attraction, and what you attract what you think, it's so true. And like you said, a lot of people don't understand that underlining, because a lot of people will say, okay, I'm positive, but positive things are not happening. But if you say that, your underlying thought is positive things are not happening. No matter how many times you say, and no matter how many times you say a positive affirmation, if you can't fool the universe. The universe knows, God knows exactly what's in your heart. So it has to be a heartfelt belief, a heartfelt thought. It can't just be from the brain. It has to come from the heart. And I'm not sure if you're familiar with heart math, but they have done a lot of research how your heart is so much more, the energy, the electromagnetic field emitting from your heart is so much stronger than your brain. So that if you just think a positive thought, but not really, it doesn't really resonate in your heart, if you don't really believe it, you can't trick the universe, you can't trick God, So I think that's where a lot of people are feeling frustration. Like you said, The Secret was very, very popular in 2007, and a lot of people bought the book and watched the DVD and listened to the audio, and then got disillusioned because they're like, okay, I'm saying all these positive affirmations, but it's not showing up. But that's exactly your underlying belief is what you have to work on. You have to really get to your core belief system, because that your core belief is what you're attracting to yourself. So no matter what you say, it's not as powerful as your core belief. So definitely, like you said, you came up with a wonderful title, God equals MC squared, because that's true. Energy is everything. God is everything. They're one and the same, as you would say. So that is very. So when you how did you first go about writing the book and getting it published and doing all of that?
Sure, absolutely. Well, but before I go into that, I would say that, like as you mentioned, that the Heart Math Institute, which I actually quote in my book, there is a part where I write about it and say that the Heart Math Institute actually did the study, and they found that the physical organ that is the heart, it's the most powerful transceiver, meaning transmitter and receiver of information, way more powerful than the brain, as you mentioned. And there is there is an electromagnetic field that extends the human body, from the heart onwards, about 6 feet. or radius from the physical human body that originates from the heart that actually feels information and data or other feelings from other human beings and other events that your brain would never be able to do. The most powerful transceiver of information in your body, and it is actually, that's why they say love, they say it's, you feel the love in your heart. You actually really physically feel the love in your heart, in the physical organ that's the heart, and not just a metaphorical, explanation of, you say, matter of the heart, my heart skips a beat, and so on and so forth, but because it actually feels it. And that's why it really is the organ. So that's why the feeling of any situation, instead of just thinking about it with your brain. I'm not saying that thinking about something is not important. It absolutely is, because that's where it starts. But if you keep focusing on something and you keep thinking about that, then you start feeling a certain thing about that, positive or negative. And the fact is that if it's positive and your heart feels it and you feel that, then you are developing that positive aspect of whatever it is that you want or whatever it is you're feeling. And then if it's on the other side, you won't go there. But then that's unfortunately what happens, because your heart or your brain or your mind doesn't know the difference. It just takes what you are telling it and what you're thinking and what you're feeling and tries to make it real. So that's the aspect of it. I apologize. What was your question? I got a little distracted.
Well, I'll get back to that question. But you, when you mentioned heart math again, it reminded me of another finding from heart math. They have these sensors and they measure the world with these sensors. And on 9/11, they measured how the world, the coherence of the world spiked on 9/11, showing that our heart, that field you were just talking about, with so many people feeling the same thing at the same time, these meters spiked. But the really fantastic thing about that study is that it actually started to spike before the towers. I can't remember the exact amount of time.
I think it's like a few hours before that.
Started.
You're talking about the random event generators or random number generators that kind of went haywire around that time before it happened.
Exactly.
As
the
humanity
spike started
knew that it was going to happen.
A couple of hours before the towers even got hit.
Were hit.
Meaning that our hearts are intelligent, and it saw the future. In a few hours, it knew what was coming before we knew what was coming, and that is so amazing. It is so amazing.
It absolutely is.
That is just amazing. Actually, I am in communications with Heart Math and hoping to have a guest on from Heart Math in the near future. So that
would be awesome. I would definitely listen to that show.
Yes. Well, please tune in. And the question, going back to the question I had asked, can you share with our audience, how you went about getting your writing the book and getting it published and all of that? How did that happen for you?
Sure.
A lot of people. Yes, go ahead.
Yeah, so it is something. I'm a first-time author. I had never written a book. I mean, if you were to ask Americans, probably at least 80%, maybe more, close to 90% of people in America would want to write a book, but most of them don't do it.
Mm-hmm.
So it was a never-before-done task for me that I was like, okay, I'm going to write a book. And it was just this one idea, right? As I mentioned, God equals MC squared, that everything is energy. That came to me. And then I just affirmed to myself that this is something I want to do, that I want to write this book about bridging the gap, the supposed gap because I don't think there is a gap, but people perceive there to be a gap that between science and spirituality. And so it became a solid idea in my mind. And from that idea, once it was solidified, it had to be solidified. I couldn't be like wishy-washy about it, and I can't say, well, yeah, it would be nice to write a book. No, I decided that I wanted to write a book about this subject, and I was passionate about it. I mean, from 20 years ago, when I first took my college English class, I was like, oh, I should write. You know, this is my passion. I love writing. I didn't know what I wanted to write about. I had a feeling I wanted to write about science because I thought science was so amazing because everything we see is basically developed by science, you know. Houses that we live in, the cars that we drive, the phones that we're talking on, everything, and, you know, technology that was developed by science. So it was very amazing to me that, you know, this was a concept or idea that I wanted to write about. But I was still kind of not so very much so passionate about it. But I was like, okay, maybe I should write about that. And then that kind of went to the back of my mind, and I never really got into it. But then, as I mentioned, I came across The Secret and Dr. Wayne Dyer's teachings, and it changed my life. And I said, all right, now I can see that I want to write about bridging science and spirituality, because all my life I've always wondered, is there evidence or proof of God, of God's existence? You know, we believe in religion, like you said initially, that there's all this programming that we have that is given to us by well-meaning. You know, they don't mean ill, well-meaning parents and teachers and mentors and siblings and everybody that we come across in our life as we are growing up from when we were born. They don't mean to lead us astray. They want us to have a good life. But they have been programmed themselves. So they're only going by their own programming. And they don't necessarily question it. So they tell us what they think is true. What they think is right, you know. And it's not necessarily always. I'm not saying everything they tell us is wrong, but they tell us all of that and they program us, and then we go about living our lives believing the same things that they did, so that we end up doing the same thing. So I figured that there had to be something out there that kind of provided some kind of evidence, if not downright proof, that there is this power in existence that we may call God or spirit or the higher self. You know, doesn't matter what you call it. Like Shakespeare said, you know, a rose by any other name wouldn't smell less sweet. So doesn't matter what you call God, it's still God and has all the things and attributes of God. So I figured that I would want to write this, and the book just came to me, you know, sometimes word at a time, sometimes a sentence, a phrase, sometimes chapters at a time, and all I had to do was write it down. And then I tried to approach major publishers. That didn't quite work out, so I just said, you know what, I'm not gonna wait. I'm just gonna get this out there because I think people need to read this. And so I self-published my book, and it's out there now.
Wonderful. Well, that you're talking about following your inspiration, following your passion, and that's exactly what really is what I would like for the show to help do too, is to help inspire people to follow whatever their passion is. Your passion was to write, and my passion was just, I didn't know anything about starting a radio show, and I woke up in the middle of the night, and my soul said, do it. So I'm like, I didn't argue, I just did it. So following your passion, that's
I like that
key.
Very much, Caroline.
Yes.
I love it, actually.
Yes, that's the key. And a lot, sometimes, like, I think it's the programming, again, is a part of why people are sometimes afraid. They have a passion, but they're afraid, or their mind starts to say, well, I don't have enough of this, or I don't have enough of that to do that. You know, they start to, like, think negative thoughts, let negative thoughts creep in and stop them from following their passion. But I encourage all our listeners and everybody on the planet to follow your passion, because your passion is why you came here. That's your soul speaking to you. That's your soul saying, okay, you came here to do this. Now go do it. So wonderful, wonderful. So can you also share with us, you had mentioned to me about your son. We had a conversation earlier. Can you share that conversation with our audience?
Absolutely, and I will kind of also hit up again on what you said, is that the passion that a person has is their very reason and purpose of being here, because every human being, I know there's almost 7 billion of us, and people might find it hard to believe, but every individual has a unique gift. It may not always be unique in the sense that, there's already a whole bunch of singers out there. Why do they need another singer out there? Or why do they need another musician out there? Or why do they need, another public speaker? There's thousands of them. But there are things that a person can do in their own unique way that has never been done before. So that's why there is a need for another singer, another 10 million singers, and another 100,000 public speakers, and another million doctors, because everybody is going to have their own unique perspective that they can bring to the table, and to say that, yes, it doesn't, you don't necessarily have to reinvent the wheel and say, oh, I'm going to do something that is nobody has ever done before. No, it could be something that has been done before millions of times, but you're going to do it in a way that has never been done before. So that's what I think a lot of people need to get, that it doesn't have to be something new. It can be something that, as you mentioned, that somebody is passionate about, and they'll find that they feel alive. Any of my listeners, when you do what you feel that you wanted to do when you were young, or maybe you are still young, and you feel that passion, do it. And I know we all worry about, there isn't enough money, or if I go into this field, I'm not going to make enough money, and I'm not going to be able to feed myself or my family. And all of these worries and all of this programming comes into play. And I'm not saying it's not legitimate. And those are legitimate concerns. You do want to feed your family. You want to feed yourself. You want to be able to pay the rent or the mortgage or whatever it might be. And those are legitimate concerns. However, if you follow that path, do it on a part-time basis, Still keep your day job, as they say, but follow it as much as you can in your free time. Create a little bit of free time if you don't have it, and work on that a little bit. And see if you can develop a career around that. And the money will come. It will be taken care of. And have that faith that it will be, if you take that step in that direction of doing what you should be doing, instead of just saying, okay, I need to just get a job that, 9-to-5 job that's going to pay me my wage and I can earn a living. So having said that, yes, my son, who will be 8 in September, so he's a little over 7.5, he's an autistic child. He's on the autism. I don't know if any of my listeners would know term disorder. So there, it's a spectrum. It's a wide variety, from the extreme to the very mild. And, people can be on anywhere on that spectrum of autism. I would say my son is on the milder side, but he clearly has shown the symptoms of autism, and he has been diagnosed. What I would say, first of all, is that in my opinion, and I'm not just saying that because he's my son, I feel he's the happiest person that I have ever met in my life. He's the most blissful human being that I know. Now, having said that, I recently, just about a week ago, I came across this book. Actually, my wife had met this lady who happened to notice my son in this Indian grocery store, and she noticed the signs that maybe my son might be autistic. The reason she noticed that is because her son is autistic. So they started talking, and then they became friends, and they invited us over to dinner about 2 weeks ago, and then I went there, and we went to dinner, and I found this book there. The title of the book is The Reason I Jump, and the subtitle is The Inner Voice, Teen-Year-Old Boy with Autism. and it's a Japanese child, Naoki Higashida. I'm sure I'm not pronouncing it correctly. That's Naokihigashida. Naoki Higashida is the author, 13-year-old boy. Well, he's like well over 20 now. But again, the book title is The Reason I Jump, a New York Times bestseller. I would beg anybody listening, if you know somebody who is an autistic person, or an autistic child, if that's your child, it's a sibling, it's, any way you are related to an autistic child, or you're a caregiver for an autistic child, you're a teacher in a school with autistic children, I beg you wholeheartedly to get this book and to read this book, because this will change your life and it'll change the life of that person, that autistic child that is in contact with you. Because the title is The Reason I Jump, and one of the things that autistic people do is they like to jump, and especially children. And then there are so many other things that they do, and the answer to those questions are given by a person who is autistic, who happens to be, at least, he's able to articulate, which is very difficult for an autistic person to do. When you read this book, you'll understand. He's able to articulate the answers to these questions. Just as an example, I'm just cracking this book open. Is it true that you hate being touched? That's question number 16, and he answers that. Then question number 17, why do you wave goodbye with your palm facing yourself? And then when you're on one of your highs, what's going through your mind? And why do you make a huge fuss over tiny mistakes? These are mistakes that they would make. Like, for example, my son, if he's carrying a glass of water, he carries it so safely, he doesn't want a single drop to fall out of that glass. And why is that they do that? And again, why do you jump, which is the title of the book? What's the reason you jump? That's question number 25. And he answers that. And it's absolutely mind-blowing, because after I read that book and I went home, it was a day I have a convenience store that me and my wife own, and I went home because she relieved me after like 5 o'clock, and I went home and I was going to take a nap because I was so tired. And my son was there, and he and we spent like 3 hours. I was going to take a nap. I was so exhausted. I'd slept like 5 hours each night the last 3 nights, and I worked like 15, 16 hours every day. I couldn't go to sleep. I was spending time with him, and I was connecting with him like I have never done before. I mean, it's not like I felt I understood him from the day he was born, and I could feel what he was trying to convey. But this just took it to the next level. And I'm promising anybody who's listening, if you have a friend or a family member, like I said, even if it's not somebody that you're directly related to, get this book, give that as a gift to that person. And quite frankly, you know what? If you can't afford it, or there is something that's preventing you from getting this book, reach out to me. I'll buy it and I'll send it to you, because it's that powerful. And it's going to be life-changing for you and for the child. And I could sense that 2-3 hours that we spent together, I could sense him, because he doesn't have speech, he doesn't talk. But just his look in his eye he could tell that I could understand him 1,000 times better than before. Like, I could tell that. And we connected in a way that I could not explain. So I would urge you to do that. And thank you, Caroline, for bringing that up, because I think this is going to be life-changing for the better for everybody involved with an autistic child or an autistic person.
That's beautiful. That's because from what I'm hearing, your son is letting you know that he can see a difference in you. That he's letting you know that you see him now. That he knows that you see him, which is beautiful.
Yes, absolutely.
That's beautiful.
I mean, not that it wasn't the case before, but it just took it to a level where, like you said, the whole concept of your show is that oneness, and I feel that oneness with him. That I again, like I said, like the day he was born, literally the day he was born, he was smiling, and I told the nurse, and you're gonna laugh at, I told her, I'm like, this kid's smiling at me, he's my son, he's like, no, he has gas. I'm like, no, the kid he may have gas, but he's not smiling because of that. He's smiling at me. I can tell he's smiling at me, and he did that from day one, from the day he was born. And I've always felt like I almost communicated with him telepathically, even before the age that he would talk. Even before he didn't talk, I knew what he was feeling, what he was thinking, or at least that's what I feel. But this was a week ago when he's almost, he's more than 7.5, and I felt this connection. And like you said, he was letting me know with his eyes, just looking at me and hugging me and letting me know that, Dad, you finally understand what I'm going through. You can feel it, or at least you know. And I cried for an hour. I couldn't stop crying, and
that's so beautiful.
It was amazing, and I like it. That's why I'm so passionate about this, and I'm amazed that I'm surprised that I didn't know about it. That's why I want everybody to know about it, to get this book. The Reason I Jump. The inner voice of a 13-year-old boy with autism. I mean, they feel like they're in a prison of their body, and they do things. They flap their arms, and they jump, and they make these funny sounds, and they bolt like they run, and they do all these things, and you will understand why they do it, and that will be a connection that you've never felt before.
Wow, that also reminds me of my first guest was Robert Schwartz, who wrote Your Soul's Plan and Your Soul's Gift. And I personally do believe that we plan, like your son's soul in his pre-birth planning, he picked you to be his dad. And that was a soul agreement you and him had on a soul level. And he chose to come into this incarnation with autism for a reason,
right?
But he also, you said from day one he was smiling, he was happy. He's like, okay, I know why I came. I'm happy. I'm good. So that's beautiful. That's beautiful.
Well, you kind of hit up on something that I absolutely and completely and totally agree with and believe in, is that we choose these maladies, if you will, or we choose our parents. We actually choose our parents. We choose the lifetime of, whatever it might be, the challenges.
Exactly, the challenges.
And and we choose our parents. And the funny thing is that you mentioned that he chose us. And I wrote this is on page 322 of my book in the acknowledgement section. And thanks to my son for having come into our lives and having brought us such joy that we could not have imagined, I know that you had a choice and you chose us. For that, I have dedicated this book to you. So I knew he chose us. And I also know that he chose to have autism. Now, people might say, why would anybody be so crazy, so to speak, to ever choose that? And what I would say is that is the bravest, or one of the bravest and most courageous souls there is out there. Who chose who chose that.
Exactly.
And say, I'm going to go in being completely not normal. And I'm going to be there in the world where everybody else or most people are normal. And I'm going to be out there and to learn what I need to learn and to teach others, like, for example, us, his parents, what we need to learn.
To teach us compassion and love and patience and understanding. But that was
all of that.
Robert's first title of his book. The publisher changed the title to Your Soul's Plan, but the original title of the book was Courageous Souls. So you're absolutely right. We do have a caller. We have a caller from the 843 area code, okay, with a question. Okay, 843 area code, you are live.
Hello?
Hi.
Hello.
Hi. Are you doing readings?
Not readings. We have an author by the name of Prasann Thakrar. He wrote a book called God Equals MC Square. So we have an author. Okay. Did you have a question? Are you for the author or?
Well, no, I'll listen. I've read your book though, so that's what let me listen.
Okay.
Let me listen because I've read your book. It's phenomenal.
Yes, it's a great book. It's an awesome book.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So did you want to share something with the author while we have you?
No, I just think it's a great example of how everything works.
Okay.
It hit home. I thought it was very concise and just hit home. So it's amazing.
Okay. Well, thank you. Thank you for calling in.
Well, thank you. Yeah, there was a reason why you called in, and maybe you were listening to it, and there was something you were supposed to get, you know?
Exactly.
Absolutely. I'll continue to listen. I thought I was calling into a complete different show. It's weird. But no, perfect. I mean, I'll listen.
That's okay. Yeah, there are no accidents or
There are no accidents. There are no accidents, no coincidence.
Absolutely.
Okay. Well, thank you for calling. You have a good night, okay? All right.
Thank you.
Good night.
Okay.
That just goes to prove, Caroline, that there are no accidents, and that's like a wonderful segue, I guess, to, we think about, and, I
because she's familiar with your book, so that's awesome.
Yeah. Oh, she actually read my book?
Yeah.
I thought you were talking.
Yes.
Oh, okay. Oh, well, that's amazing. And it's like I'm never. It's like it's always humbling for me.
Yes.
And it's just there are no accidents, and so that's why I've questioned that many times, several times. So it's like, why me? Why does my only son have to be somebody who is, quote, not normal, And I've questioned that. And like you said, compassion, understanding, respect, love, patience, all of these things. Not that, I'm not saying that I didn't have compassion before, but, it has gone to a level that I would have never imagined on my own. And one of the things that I've always struggled with, I'm 39 now, I'll be 40 in August, but in the early part of my life, my teenage years and early 20s even, I had a major problem with anger. Anger was something that I would flip out in a second. I mean, you could look at me the wrong way and I would be flipping out, or something that if you were to notice a conversation or something that I might have been involved in, you'd be like, this guy is crazy. It's like, what's wrong with him? Why is he so angry? Well, why does he get so angry so easily? Such a short fuse. And that was one of the things that, I'm not the reason my son came into my life, because I kind of had gotten over a lot of that before. But I think that was one of my life lessons that I had chose to learn, is to overcome as much as I can to have that in control, and to learn to be more patient and to not flip out and not get angry. I still get angry, don't get me wrong. I'm still a human being, and so I still lose my patience, but it is 1,000% better than before. I love one of the sayings that Dr. Wayne Dyer has. He says, true nobility is not about being better than anybody else. It's about being better than you used to be. And I can, like he says, I can say that honestly and mean it, that I am better than I used to be. Could I be better than now? Of course. I can be 1,000 times better than what I am now. But I am better than I used to be. And it's very humbling. It's not about bragging. It's not about saying, holier than thou. It's not about comparing myself to anybody else. It's comparing myself to my own self, the way I used to be.
Exactly. And you were talking before about, we were talking about following one's passion, and you brought up the example that there are a lot of singers and there are a lot of musicians and artists and doctors, but it's so true that each of us has a unique gift, unique that we all have something that we can bring to whatever field of art, music, medicine, whatever we're doing. We have something unique that no one else has, because we are all unique, divine. We're all divine, but we're all a uniquely divine aspect of God.
Absolutely.
So that's the wonderful thing about following your passion, because when you follow your passion, it leads you to that unique thing that only you can share with the world. And a lot of people a lot of people don't think highly of themselves, but each one of us is a unique divine spark of God, and it's something that each one of us has that no one else has, so that can bring to the table of whatever vocation, our career, our art, our passion. That's where your passion will bring you to that. And like you said, if you follow it, and you follow it to, like you said, you follow your passion wherever you're comfortable. If you want to follow it on the weekend, a couple of hours a week, because you still feel you have to do the 9 to 5 to pay the bill. You follow your passion as much as you're comfortable following it, but don't ever don't ever ignore it. Don't ever ignore what your heart is calling and leading you to do, because it'll amaze you when you do that. It'll just amaze you. So that is so true about the uniqueness of each and every one of us, and how we are all uniquely divine and all a part of God. Never can be disconnected. Even though we think we might be disconnected, we can never be disconnected from God. So that is really, really wonderful that you shared that with us. I also wanted to ask you to share a little bit with the audience about your former radio show and the mission of your show at that time.
Sure, absolutely. Yes, it was entitled Spiritual Renaissance, and I did that for almost a year, and I had some fabulous guests on the show, including Mike Dooley, who is one of my favorite teachers from The Secret, and he's a friend of mine, and I've met him several times, and we are in touch, and I've had several guests on the show who pretty much are talking about the same concepts and same ideas in science and spirituality, and kind of bridging them, and it was a powerful experience to talk to these folks and to talk about these subjects on the air, and it changed my life just doing the show, as I'm sure that doing this show that you're doing is also impacting your life in a way that you might have never thought. So it was
exactly.
It was amazing, and I wanna restart that, and very soon I plan on doing that. In the last couple of years, as I mentioned before, we ended up starting a business, a convenience store in Massachusetts, and that's where I live. So that has kind of taken up a lot of my time, but just you reconnecting with me, Caroline, that was a sign for me to say, I need to get back to that, which is the purpose of my life, is to write and to be on the show, or to do a radio show, and just to talk about it. It doesn't even have to be a form, like just to let you know that you can actually do what you feel passionate about, even in your job that you might have. Like, for example, I have this store, and I talk about spirituality, and I talk about being positive and feeling positive to my customers. And some of them may roll their eyes. Some of them may think I'm crazy. Some of them may think I'm overly optimistic. I don't care. I try. It's whoever is ready for the information will get it. And whoever is
exactly.
not, no judgment, no criticism.
Right.
That's okay. They're not ready for it yet. I wasn't ready for it until I was like 30-something, 32 or whatever it was, So I wasn't ready for it, and now maybe I might have dismissed it, maybe I might not have. Just like you mentioned, you came across Think and Grow Rich when you were 17, and it stuck with you, but you didn't really really take it to heart, so to speak, but you remembered it, and you knew that you came across that. But then when the time was right in your life, you started to say, oh, I came across this information when I was 17, and I see clearly how and why that is right. So, like in my day-to-day life, I try to practice this.
That's
just
planting. Like I was just saying, even if someone's not really receiving it, they are still hearing what you're saying, and it's still kind of planting seeds in the back of their mind. So it's planting seeds, and that's what awakening to oneness is all about, because I do believe that the world will get to a point where we know, just like the world mankind at one time thought the world was flat. And,
the flat earth.
And came to learn that the world is not flat. Because if someone had said in those days, no, I think the world is round, they'd look at you like you're crazy. But, now we all know the world is round. So I believe the concept, the idea that we're one, we're all connected, I believe sometimes in the future, maybe not in my lifetime, but sometime in the future, it will be a known fact. Okay, we're all one, and then we'll be living in a different world. There will be no more war, because what you do to another person, you do it to yourself.
Yeah.
So,
and you hit the nail on the head, Caroline. Let's hope it is in our lifetime anyway, but we'll see what happens, and we'll do what we can, and all of our listeners hopefully will do what they can. But just to give you an idea of why, on the scientific side, as science says that everything is energy. So you can take a brick in the wall of a building, and you can take a human being, or you can take a star, or you can take a fish, and you can take a speck of dirt. Doesn't matter. It's all made up of material, which is ultimately molecules and atoms, and then ultimately subatomic particles, and then vibrating energy at one point. And one thing is that I would say this is not a political thing. It's what I would say is that it's that literally. We all say Earth is what we had Earth Day. What, a couple of days ago? I think it was 2 days ago or something.
Yes,
so
April 22nd.
We say Mother Earth. Yeah, yes, we say Mother Earth, but literally, that is absolutely 100% true, because every single atom in your body and my body and every other person of 7 billion human beings, literally every atom came from the earth, because it came from either a plant or from an animal, which, again, either ate a plant, if they were herbivores, or carnivores, they ate another animal that was an herbivore. So they ate something that was ultimately a plant, and the plant grew from the earth, and all of the atoms that came into that came from the earth, literally, and then the sunlight. So they're really made up of the physical elements that are in the earth, and light, which comes from the sun. So that is exactly what we are made up of. We are literally made up of the earth. So first of all, we need to respect that, and to understand that we are literally made up of the earth, and every atom in our body. I love what there's an Indian yogic teacher named Sadhguru, and he says that Mother Earth has lent us this body, which she has. She'll take it back exactly the way it is. No interest, though. Atom for atom, there's no interest, though. We don't have to pay an interest. But every atom that came into us is going to be taken back exactly the way it was, and we are doing that every day. We are shedding skin, and we are shedding, we are shedding parts of our body, so to speak. But then we're eating food, so we are getting it again. But again, all of that will be taken back, atom by atom, atom for atom. But you know what? That's our mother. She gave us physical life. Yes, the soul comes from God, and of course if we recognize that as well, then we understand the importance of not only the earth but of what we would call God, because that's our spiritual parent, and the earth is our physical parent, if you will.
And then if we also go back to energy, science is telling us energy, everything is energy, and energy cannot be destroyed. It only transforms, like you were talking about molecules going back to the earth. It transforms. So energy, everything is energy, and so energy cannot be destroyed. So
created or destroyed, yes.
Right. In essence, what we have is eternal. It's an eternal cycle of life. I personally don't believe in death. When we leave our physical body does go back to the earth, as you were saying, and our spirit goes on. But I don't look at it as a death. It's a transformation. It's a rebirth into spirit, and your physical body goes back to Mother Earth, as you said. So it's a cycle. It's not linear. It's a cycle. It's a life cycle. So it's just a rebirth into a new experience, and a rebirth. Everything is just transforming.
I agree with you wholeheartedly. And I was, in fact, just as I mentioned that, I try to practice what I talk about and write about on a daily basis in my store. And just like about 2 hours ago, I was talking to a person and I said, this life that we have, and he was like, when I was younger, I wanted to be a musician, and I played with Godsmack, which is one of the bands, and the Mighty Mighty Bosstones, which is a Boston-based pop group or a rock group. And he's like, I played with them before they were stars, and I was going to do this. And he's like, my father passed away around that time, and then I had to become responsible and get a job and all of that. And I said, you know what? You are doing what you're doing because that was meant to be. And this physical life that we have is a fraction, it's such a small fraction of our infinite life as a soul. I mean, I know it feels real, and it is real when we're here. And, you may live 60, 70, 80, 100 years to be in age, and it seems so long sometimes. But it's really, as Dr. Wayne Dyer said, it's like a parenthesis in eternity,
Yes, it's less than a blink of the eye. And it was very good that you brought up the fact that no matter what a person is doing right now, whether they're in their ideal job or not, they can be their authentic self, and they can follow their passion in whatever they're doing. Like you said, in the store, you share who you are with your customers. So whatever you're doing in life, you can share what you believe, share yourself with another person, and that can inspire that person. I can't believe the time always goes by so quickly.
I know.
The hour
it's almost over.
The hour is just about up. And I would like to mention that I have next week, Barbara Mark Hubbard is our guest, and she will be talking about conscious evolution. She is the founder of the Foundation for Conscious Evolution, and I'm so much looking forward to her. And thank you so much, Prasann. I appreciate you being with us tonight, and you have a good evening. Thank you again. Okay.
Thank you so
much,
Carolyn, and thank you to all the listeners.
Okay. Good night.
Have a good night. Bye-bye.
You too. Bye-bye.